Boston Red Sox take the series with another explosive performance, starting the scoring late but ending up 10-2 regardless. With this victory over the Rockies bringing their record up to 48 wins and 45 losses. I am Nick the Voice, joined tonight by Mark Chikaris and Jason Kelly, and we are the Bastards of Boston. If you want more, you can go to bastardsofbostonbaseball.com for great written articles posted just about every day. Now, I think we sort of need to talk about the beautiful, complete game from Bryan Bello today. Nearly a complete game shutout. Gave up a little two-run homer in the ninth, unfortunately, a little shaky. But, I mean, just great overall. 10 Ks. What was your guys' reaction to that? It was beautiful.
Yeah, it's tremendous. I think Bryan Bello has really turned a corner this season. He's pitching with more authority. He's getting ahead in the count. The strikeouts are going up. He's not fumbling around with hitters as much. Like, I feel like early in the year, it was, every Bello start was like a grind. It was just a grind to get him to 5 innings, and he'd be up in like the 90s for a pitch count. And now it's just, first pitch, fastball, strike, and like just getting ahead in the count. And that way, the pitch count is staying stable, and he's going deeper into games. So it's great to see. I think he's really hitting his stride right now.
Yeah, he definitely is attacking the zone more. I feel like early in his career, he nibbled and nibbled and nibbled and nibbled. And of course, that when you do that, your pitch count goes up, and you're only in there for 5 innings. And I know it was the Rockies, but it doesn't matter, right? As Lou said on the broadcast, like, you got to play who's on the schedule. And I think most importantly, now you're setting up Giolito for tomorrow. Hopefully he has a good game, because if he does, then you got your bullpen fresh and ready to go for Tampa right before the All-Star break. So very important start.
Yeah, this is just honestly what happens when you take a good pitcher and put them against a weak lineup. 76 strikes, 107 pitches total. Like you said, that's just totally un-Bello-esque, and I love to see that. If he can master his control, that is going to unlock a whole new world for him, a whole new level. He's always had good stuff, always had good pitches in his arsenal, but like you said, he just nibbles around. He pitches scared a lot of the time. Sometimes he'll get ahead in the count. He'll then immediately throw 3 balls. It's frustrating to watch. Tonight, he looked vintage, and honestly better than vintage. He looked like the best version of himself. He's been taking so many steps forward this season as we've been getting deeper into it, and this is kind of the culmination of that. It's really, really nice to see. I think he should have one more start, I believe, because we've got a game tomorrow and then 4 against the Rays. So in theory, Bello should have one more start versus the Rays lineup, who have been good, but also kind of slumping recently. So maybe we're catching them at the right time. On the other side of the ball was the beautiful bats tonight. I mean, Trevor Story, monster home run. Jarren Duran, monster home run. Romy Gonzalez hitting anyone and anything. Ceddanne Rafaela continuing to step up. I mean, these guys are good. This lineup is looking good, and I don't know what to make of that, quite honestly. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it took him a while to get going. And especially against a guy like Kyle Freeland. I was sitting there, 6 innings, they're still not scoring. I'm like, guys, it's Kyle freaking Freeland. Like, this guy stinks. Come on. Like, and this lineup does, typically kill lefties, especially with Romy in there. So it kind of took him a while, but once it started rolling, it just snowballed. And, that Rockies bullpen there's nobody in there. I mean, there's nobody of substance in that bullpen. So once you take Freeland out, it was just, it was open season. But yeah, I mean, it's great to see the offense producing like this. Obviously, they're not going to score 10 runs every night, but if you can have innings like that where it just, again, it snowballs and you just score 3-4 runs at a clip, and then you get Bello pitching the way he did, you're going to win a lot of games that way. And I feel like this team and this lineup, they lost a lot of games earlier this year because they weren't producing runs. And, Garrett Crochet would go out there, pitch a masterpiece, and the Red Sox only managed like 1 run. Now they're hitting better. They're getting, deeper into counts. They're taking their walks. And Trevor Story, look, you groove a curveball to him, he can hit it 400 plus feet. I mean, he's still going to strike out maybe 2 or 3 times a game, but if he gives you a 3-run homer like that, you'll take it. So yeah, the lineup is really starting to produce, and It's funny that a certain someone leaves, and all of a sudden people say, "Oh, well, you got rid of your best hitter. They're not going to score runs." Well, no, they can. We're okay.
I got to give credit to Freeland, though, to be honest with you, because we were talking about earlier Bayo nibbling, and especially last year, he was just nibbling, but he was not hitting those spots. Freeland was putting that thing right where he wanted it for most of the game, and especially that like backdoor sweeper or slider, whatever you want to call it, to righties. Like he was just hitting that outside corner, low and away, and he got the calls because they were strikes, and that was setting him up to throw like a 93 mile an hour fastball. I forgot who it was, right down the middle of the plate. I think it was Eaton. 93 miles an hour, dead center, and he had nothing for it. So I mean, credit to him. He just couldn't get through the lineup 3 times. You know what I mean? So he pitched very, very well, obviously, in the first 3 or 4 innings. So credit to him, but credit to the Red Sox. They made adjustments, and I'm sure someone saw something and turned it around. So no doubt.
Definitely. What's been really encouraging to me over these last few series, really, the last, I think, 4 series, you could say the Red Sox offense has been getting going. We had that double-digit performance against the Blue Jays, 15-1. We had a double-digit performance, or excuse me, 2 of those against the Nationals. And yes, we did have one versus the Reds as well. And now we have a nice double-digit performance tonight. You've got to be able to beat up on bad teams. You have to be able to hit bad pitching. How many times have we seen it, not just in this team, but in other teams around the league, where you sort of play the level of your competition? And the Sox were guilty of that earlier in the year, playing very poorly against the White Sox, letting them take games off of us that we really should have won. If we want to stay in the conversation, which we are staying in the conversation right now, especially as the Rays and Yankees continue their struggles, we need to take advantage of teams like this. And that's exactly what we've done 2 nights. Fantastic pitching, fantastic hitting. Go out there tomorrow, try to get the sweep. I don't know if you guys have looked at Antonio Senzatella's Baseball Savant page. He is quite literally one of the worst pitchers you could possibly be in Major League Baseball. This guy right here, like, if you don't go out there with Giolito on the bump and just massacre this guy, I mean, you got to reevaluate your life. We have potential to have just a massive win differential this series, and you got to do that. You got to do that, especially if you want to go into the Rays with some serious competition. Now, what I want to bring up is the possibility of Bregman joining this lineup very soon. Obviously, a guy like David Hamilton or Nate Eaton, take your pick, is going to get sent down. But the problem that we sort of have talked about recently is the other guy kind of has to go too. You sort of need to send both of them down if you want to bring Yoshida up, but then you're kind of losing some of that infield flexibility. You could say that Romy becomes your new utility guy on the infield, but then in that situation, you have Abraham Toro hitting every day as your starting first baseman, and I might like him versus righties, not so much versus lefties. Where are your guys' heads at with that? Because me and Terry were talking the other day. We came up with a name, Eugenio Suarez. Never played first base before, I don't think, but neither did Kyle Schwarber before coming here in 2021. So it's not entirely out of the question.
I mean, I love Suarez. He was a guy that in the offseason, I was on this show saying, I want the Red Sox to sign him. And this was, this was when Devers was still on the team. I said, I don't care. I want Eugenio Suarez. I mean, the guy just mashes. And obviously things are not going the way they thought they would be going in Arizona. So they're probably going to be in a little bit of a sell mode. They're not completely out of it yet, but at this point might be prudent for them to sell. Suarez would be a good candidate. He's a free agent at the end of the year anyway. That kind of right-handed power at Fenway Park would be lethal. And yeah, he's never played first base before, but unlike someone else, I don't think he'd have a hard time going over there and, learning how to play first base, especially if he's on a team that's, headed for the playoffs and he gets to play half his remaining games at Fenway Park, and that Green Monster is going to be tempting for him. So, yeah, I would love it. I don't know what the asking price would be. Again, He is a free agent at the end of the year, so I don't think you'd have to give up a ton. We're not talking about giving up a top 10 prospect for this guy. I love it. I think he'd be a great fit. I know Toro has done a pretty decent job at first base, but he is a guy that I think the more you play him, the more he's going to get exposed. And I agree with you about him against lefties. He's not good against left-handers. So they're definitely going to have to make some moves, because if they want to activate Yoshida and call him up, then you're going to have too many outfielders. And then with, Bregman coming back, you also have an influx of too many infielders. So, yeah, two guys are going to have to go. I think a trade's probably going to have to be made. But if Suarez is coming in, I think that'd be great. I think he would be a really good fit in this lineup, because you can just plop him right in the middle, right in that 4 spot, and he would just mash. So, yeah, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Jason. Like, sometimes the more you play people, the more they get exposed. Like, everyone loved Brock Holt, right? And it's like, he was a great utility guy, no doubt, invaluable piece, of the 2018 World Series run. Great guy, very versatile, but the more at bats you get, it's it's going to go downhill, because people got to know their roles. And I mean, Toro went 0 for 4 today. I mean, that kind of bring, if we're going to use immediate stats, I mean, he's been doing pretty well. But then you add a guy who has what does he have? 25 home runs already? 28
something
home
like
runs.
that. He's
28.
really good this year.
Yeah, he's already got 28 home runs. I mean, slap a glove on him and work with him, and see what you can do, because I'll take the power, over the glove at this point. Although, the Red Sox didn't make any errors today. That was a good thing too. Real quick, just because we're talking about first baseman, did you guys hear the Will Clark story out of San Francisco?
Yes, indeed. That is a big story about Devers. I believe they said stood him up 3 times in a row, 3 days in a row. To his credit, something that I heard afterwards is that maybe him not wanting to do that right in front of the Red Sox dugout was a big factor. But I didn't hear any correction on if he started working with Will Clark after the Red Sox left town. So I don't know.
Well, the follow-up was that Will Clark was asked about that. It's like, well, now that part's gone, will you work with Rafi again? He said, Rafi better get his ass over to first base the next time I'm in town. If not, I think the quote was like, if not, I'll grab him by his neck and throw him out there if I have to. Like, Will Clark is one of those, like, old school baseball hardos.
Don't mess with him. Don't mess with him.
Yeah. So I can see, why he kind of phrases it like that. But can you imagine how that's going to go over with Rafael Devers, who we obviously know is very sensitive? He's going to hear that and go, oh, really? Yeah, right. Yeah, I've got the contract the team traded for me. Like, buzz off, Will Clark. So that's just a fight waiting to happen in San Francisco.
Agreed. You sort of saw that type of clash with new school and old school type of players with the White Sox. They brought in the name's eluding me. They brought in sort of the older coach a few years ago. What was his name?
Oh, yeah, not Mattingly. No,
trying to remember.
Lasorda?
LaRussa. Thank you. Yeah. So
Lasorda. No.
Yeah.
No,
he's dead.
No. Yeah.
That would be a
possible.
shocking
Yeah.
a scandal for sure.
Rest
But
in
yeah, they
peace,
brought
Tommy.
in LaRussa, and you sort of saw how these newer players can sometimes clash with that older type of mindset. You get these guys these days who are kind of divas. I never really thought of Rafael Devers as a diva until this year, but you're definitely seeing that. He ignored Big Papi's texts. Big Papi, I think, even leaked the DMs, he showed the text history of just the one-sided nature of the conversation. So I don't know. Right now, I gotta say, I'm not missing Devers. As strange as that is, it doesn't necessarily feel like we've had a big hole in the lineup.
Well, and sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to say real quick. It just goes to show how much Devers' role changed in Boston once Mookie and Xander left, because, and people talked about this a lot when all the drama was going down in spring training, right? Like, they want you to be something that you're not. And Rafi is not a leader. He's not the face of the franchise. And I remember even seeing him he was in like a Sullivan Tire commercial or something like that. And I was like, wow, they actually got him to like do a commercial. That's insane. But I really think, when Mookie left, whatever, but when Xander left, that was it for him. He was like, he lost a mentor, he lost a friend. Excuse me. And I think they pushed him out in the forefront and he felt completely uncomfortable with that.
Yeah,
I
and I'll tell
agree.
you who else is not missing him is Alex Cora. Because if you caught his comments before the game, he was asked why the lineup is just performing better lately. And his answer right away was, well, we're not striking out as much. And, we're not striking out as much as we were 3 weeks ago. Guess what happened 3 weeks ago? Rafael Devers was traded.
Mhm.
So, and think there was another follow-up comment where he's like, yeah, it's, we're just not striking out as much and different personnel, that's helping too. He's basically telling you like, yeah, we got the fat pig out of the middle of the lineup, so we're not striking out as much. Like, that's essentially what he did. So, yeah, Cora's not missing him. I don't think his teammates are missing him. They seem to be having a ton of fun without him. And if you look at what he's been doing in San Francisco, not great. He's been slumping. That team has been slumping over there. So, all in all, the Red Sox look pretty good. Now, I'm not going to, wave the flag for ownership and say, yeah, great job. Because at the end of the day, if San Francisco or any other team wasn't willing to take on the full contract, Rafael Devers would still be here. So let's not get lost on that fact. Like, it was a salary dump, 100%, but it's a salary dump that's kind of working out for the team. Like, the return wasn't great. Kyle Harrison got roughed up today. He looks really bad. Jordan Hicks, I don't know if he's going to stick either. But the team's going in the right direction ever since. So, hey, I'll take it.
Definitely. And, one of those series, and it might have been a series loss, but it was against the Blue Jays, who have been playing out of their mind lately. So you can't really feel too bad about that. Since then, playing the Reds, who are a mixed bag this year, the Nationals, who aren't great, the Rockies, who are just downright terrible. I think this Rays series will actually have an opportunity to really show the team who they are. This will be a real prove it type of series for us. 4 games of presumably tough baseball. Now, one thing I'd like to go back to is the whole idea of the roster construction, how we sort of need to get rid of both of our bench utility guys in order to bring back Yoshida and Bregman. Now, I was a fan of the Toro and Romy platoon at first. I thought that that was really, really strong. If we want to shift Romy to being our utility guy, especially if Cora is scared of playing Meyer versus lefties, which he appears to be, that means Meyer apparently is not your everyday shortstop or even second baseman. As much as I would love for Bregman, Meyer, and Story to be my everyday infielders, if we want to keep using Romy to take left-handed at bats away from Meyer rather than from Toro, then let's look at what we really have here. We have Abraham Toro, who, looking at his career numbers, has a 676 OPS versus righties. That goes down by 71 points versus lefties to 605. Even this year, relatively small sample size versus lefties, but you have an 843 OPS that drops all the way down to 637 versus lefties. He's not getting on base very well. His power completely disappears. He does not have a single home run versus a lefty this year. You look at a guy like Eugenio Suarez, who, his career numbers are phenomenal. 779 OPS versus righties, actually gets a lot better versus lefties, 837. So far this year, an 898 OPS versus righties, 828 versus lefties. He has a slugging of 566 and 547. The on base and really, I should say the average, because he does walk quite a bit, no matter who he's facing. The average goes down by about 90 points versus lefties, but the power is still there. So it would be kind of an interesting solution where if we wanted to switch Romy to that platoon almost for Meyer, you could probably send Toro down without too much heartache, bring in a guy like Eugenio. It's just a hard thing for me to say goodbye to Toro when he's hitting as well as he is. Maybe at the end of the month, that decision will be easier. But the alternative is that you keep a guy like Hamilton or a guy like Eaton, and you let Romy be the platoon with Toro so that you get the best of both worlds with them. And then you kind of have to move one of those corner outfielders, which is either Yoshida, Duran, or Abreu. And I think we've been hearing a lot of speculation that it will likely be Duran. He just hit a home run tonight. He's playing great baseball. Where are your guys' minds at in regards to that entire sort of conundrum we're facing?
So I think at this point it's going to be a trade. It's going to have to be a trade, and even if you do trade for Suarez, that's not going to be a player swap. That's going to be you're going to give up like I don't know a Blaze Jordan for Eugenio Suarez, right? Like that's the kind of trade that's going to be. You are going to have to dump one of those corner outfielders, and look, all the smoke is heading in Duran's direction because we heard that the Padres were at the park scouting him, so they clearly want him. And again, AJ Preller, you can make him make a mistake. Like he's the kind of GM. If Breslow is as good as we think he might be, and I'm not sure yet, but he can get Preller to give him a really good package for Jarren Duran. I mean, AJ Preller, look at the package he gave up for Juan Soto. Like all James Wood, Mackenzie Gore, who's now an ace over there in Washington. Like, I mean, he has no problem just emptying his farm if he really wants a player. And he's a pretty good talent evaluator. So his farm is usually pretty good. So if I'm the Red Sox, if I'm Craig Breslow, I'm looking very seriously into that because, yeah, with Yoshida coming back and, obviously we're stuck with him. Thanks, Chaim. Then, yeah, there's going to be a logjam. So I think the prudent move is sell on Duran right now because, his value isn't as high as it was in the offseason, but it's still pretty high. Again, if you got guys like AJ Preller calling about him, then his value is still pretty good. And I think at this point, you've just got to sell a guy like that just to make everything else kind of make sense. And then once you clear up some room, then you can go out, trade for a guy like Suarez, put him at first base, and kind of add some power to your lineup that way.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was looking up Eugenio Suarez's date of birth, and I had it there for a second, and I couldn't find it. But yeah, Jason, you kind of stole my thunder a little bit with the Padres thing because evidently they've been there. They had that brief couple of days where they played in Washington, but I guess they've been there the past 2 weeks. And yeah, all the smoke is around Jarren Duran. And as far as age goes, I mean, he makes the most sense to unload because I think he's going to be 29 soon. So just from that standpoint, and, but this isn't some hot take that I'm coming up with because everyone knows it, but like, speed doesn't translate as guys get older. You don't get faster as you get older. So that makes sense to me. And his defense has been a little bit spotty this year. Looks like he's turning it up with the bat a little bit. Today was great to see. He destroyed that baseball. It was so fun to watch. And they said it was the longest homer in Fenway this season, which I can't believe because of Romy's yesterday. I was like, that was longer than Romy's, but I guess it was. But yeah, it looks like he's the guy. I think you have to, and I think you have to start to get substantial returns for trades though. Like that, and you really do.
Yeah. And it's interesting with the Padres because they've been interested in Duran seemingly going back to last offseason. Now, someone asked in the comment section, Juan Lopez asks if the Padres do want Duran, does that mean maybe a Tatis package might be in play? Terry Cushman Jr. just wrote a great article on the website about that, and he spoke about it a bit the other day. That's sort of his flag that he's carrying for sure. I don't think it's necessarily outlandish, but I think it would probably be more of an offseason move. That's where my mind is at. The Padres, just like the Red Sox right now, buying and selling is very difficult when you're in a playoff race. We've been hearing some speculation about even if we are competing, selling Chapman, and that just sounds completely ridiculous. Like you're shooting yourself in the foot. My only problem with keeping Duran with Yoshida coming back, if Yoshida wasn't coming back, unfortunately, Duran would be firmly in my lineup card every day almost. But right now we have Wilyer Abreu and we have Roman Anthony. And Anthony has proven to me that he can hit both-handedness pretty well. He's been showing some decent signs of defense in the outfield, improving in a lot of ways. And the interesting thing with Wilyer Abreu this year is not only has he made a huge jump forward versus right-handed pitching, he's actually not been that bad in the very small sample size he's been given versus left-handed pitching. In 44 plate appearances, he has a 318 on base percentage, an OPS of 703. Great defense out in the corner. You'd kind of love to see an Anthony Rafaela Abreu outfield every day, really. It's great defensively, it's great offensively. It absolutely crushes righties. Rafaela has great splits versus both. Anthony right now should be the same way. And then if Willier does regress versus lefties, then you plug in a guy like Ref Snyder, or maybe next year a guy like Stinson. There's a lot that you can do with that. The problem is just like with Yoshida coming up, he hits in terms of his profile. He doesn't have Duran's speed, but he does have his affinity for right-handed pitching, a great on base. And he's the guy who in theory would be platooning with Ref Snyder full-time at DH. It's frustrating, because I love Masataka Yoshida, but I almost don't want to see him come back, exactly for what a lot of people in the comment section right now are saying, which is that it kind of challenges Jarren Duran's safety on the team.
It does. Yeah, and that is unfortunate. I think, Yoshida he's a good hitter. He is. He's not an impact bat. He's a nice kind of number 6, number 7 hitter. Like, he's going to hit 285 with 10 home runs every single year. That's just who he is. Not that that's a bad thing. It's nothing to sneeze at, but is it worth $18 million? No. And is it worth having to jettison a guy like Jarren Duran off your team just to make room for him? I don't think so either, but obviously the Red Sox feel differently because they're now fast-tracking him, essentially. Like, having him get games at DH and like, okay, yeah, he's going to be activated in the next couple of days. So, and that's the other problem too, is that Yoshida is a perma DH. You cannot put him out in the field. Like, it's the JD Martinez thing all over again. Like, you cannot put Yoshida out in the field. He can't throw. So you kind of locked in with him having to be your DH. And obviously Roman Anthony's not going anywhere. Ceddanne Rafaela is turning into an all-star before our eyes. And yeah, I think then it comes down to, is it Willier or is it Jarren? And I think Willier, like you said, has shown that he can hit lefties. If Cora lets him, he can hit lefties. He's starting to get there. Jarren Duran isn't hitting lefties. And it's gotten to the point where Cora now took him out of the leadoff spot. So I think Cora is kind of telling you with moves like that, he doesn't have confidence in Duran, being able to learn to hit against lefties and also, be the permanent leadoff guy like he was last year. I think the entire organization is losing confidence in Jarren Duran. And I think that's why all the smoke is heading his direction. I think they are actively shopping him. And I think he's going to be the one that goes. And honestly, it's going to be painful because, yeah, he's got that, he's got fire in him. He's, good personality. I think he seems like a good guy, but I also don't think that he's like a leader. I think he's a nice player to have. And when things are going great, he's awesome. When things aren't going well and he's yelling at fans and he's, saying, homophobic slurs and stuff like that and dropping fly balls, then it's like, okay, you're actually kind of a headache now. So I think at the end of the day, they've lost confidence in him, not just his ability, but just kind of his personality. I think they kind of realize it's not going to be a long-term thing. So I think he's going to be the one to go. And I think, unfortunately, it's going to be the right move.
Yeah. And the thing with Masa too is everything people are writing in the chat, right? It's correct. Like, he's a DH, but he doesn't have a lot of pop. He could, get some base hits and maybe hit one in the gap. He can't throw. He can't play outfield. And again, why the hell did we sign this guy? And then if you guys remember this, the Red Sox were like bidding against them. Like, no one else wanted him. And the Red Sox were like bidding against themselves to get this guy. Heim wanted some splash. He's like 5'8". And I'm not like some 6'3" monster, but I mean, he's a 5'8" DH. I mean, yeah, Carl Yastrzemski was considered short and he was 5'10". So, I mean, what are we doing here? It just, he so doesn't fit this roster. He didn't fit the roster before. He doesn't fit it. He's especially doesn't fit it now. And again, that's Are they fast tracking him? This is my question to you guys, right? Are they fast tracking him to get him at bats to see if they can move him to a team? I mean, that's the only thing that I can come up with of why they want him up so badly before, the All-Star break. Because, if he really was valued, and the way we've been playing lately, I would just say, hey, come back after the All-Star break. Let's start fresh. Let's get it going on. But maybe they want to bring him up to play the Rays, and maybe he tears it up, and then he has some good at bats before the trading deadline, and you can get someone to bite. I don't know. I have no answers for Yoshida. I really don't. I never have. I'm sorry. And I have nothing personally against him. I'm sure he's a nice man, but it's like, I just don't get it.
Yeah, the thing with Yoshida, it's a very financial based problem. If he and Jarren Duran had the same exact contract, you take Jarren Duran every day of the week. And people in chat are bringing up Rusney Castillo, and it really does sort of call back to the Rusney Castillo deal, where he was able to just sort of rot away in AAA for the entirety of his contract. And a big part of that was a loophole at the time, where his contract, so long as he wasn't promoted to the major league roster, he would not have his salary be applied to the luxury tax. So that was a big part of why Rusney was buried, unfortunately. The thing with Masataka Yoshida is you look at his career numbers. If you platoon him with a guy like Ref Snyder, and I know a lot of people are tired of platoons, but if you look at Masataka Yoshida versus righties, you have 244 games, 749 career plate appearances. He's slashing 300, 351, 459. So that's an 810 OPS. It's good. I would love to shop Yoshida, but we're going to be eating money for that. And it's going to be just like it's probably why Trevor Story even was allowed to stay around long enough to have a resurgence in the first place. It's why the Yankees have stuck by guys like DJ LeMahieu. It's because these teams are like, ooh, we're investing a lot of money to just write a guy off. They hate doing it.
Especially this version of the Red Sox ownership.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I would say in the past, they cut Sandoval, they cut Julio Lugo way back in the day. It just wasn't working out, and they didn't care about eating the money. They just wanted the best roster they could have. But this version of Red Sox ownership isn't going to do that.
Yeah, 100%. The only reason to shop Jarren and keep Masa is the idea that they give you similar production out of the DH spot. And you can say that Jarren has the speed advantage, which is definitely true. But if you trade a guy like Masataka Yoshida, you eat most of the contract, you maybe get a low-end middle relief guy back. The comparison then becomes, well, what if we shop Jarren Duran? And I'm not saying the Royals would necessarily do this, but imagine if we were able to work him into a package for a guy like Chris Bubich, who is in his last year of arbitration next year, having a really great season where he sort of reinvented himself at age 27. That's kind of the two scenarios there. You either keep Duran and eat Yoshida's money and get really no one of value back, or you keep Yoshida hoping you can almost sort of, the quote from Moneyball, replace him in the aggregate almost. You sort of plug Yoshida in to Duran's spot. It's just very messy, honestly, and it's not even something I necessarily like the idea of. But, if we could get another frontline starter and the price tag is Jarren Duran, I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, neither am I. And, the one thing that you need to remember about Yoshida, too, is that he doesn't strike out. And that's a big part of his game, is that he does put the bat on the ball. Probably the biggest Achilles heel of this lineup is that they strike out. Rafael is going to strike out a lot. Trevor Story is going to strike out a lot. Jarren Duran has been striking out a lot. So Yoshida does help in that regard. He doesn't take walks very much, but he is a big just contact guy, right? So, and those numbers against right-handers, that's real. He does hit right-handed pitching very well. So I like the idea of, that kind of platoon at the DH spot. That's what they should be doing. And you kind of have to, I keep referencing the Cole Reagans trade from 2 years ago, where Kansas City traded Aroldis Chapman and got Cole Reagans back, and then he turned into their ace and almost won a Cy Young. That's the kind of trade I want the Red Sox to do. So for a guy like Jarren Duran, if San Diego's got, a stud pitcher in their system that Preller's willing to give away, and he probably would be because Preller gets very desperate every trade deadline, just kind of gives away all his young talent. If you can get like your own Mackenzie Gore back, you should be doing that. That's what the Red Sox should be doing because they do need still more pitching depth. I mean, Kyle Harrison is not working out right now. So I if they made a move like that, I'd be fine with it. And yeah, like it seems weird because I see people in the comments and like I agree. Like it feels weird that the team's getting better and they're pushing for a wild card spot, but we're gonna trade Jaron Duran and bring in Yoshida, who can't throw, can't run, and really can only just hit. That's it. And that's all he can do. It does feel weird, but I think it would kind of be similar to like the Devers trade where you look at it on paper and you go, oh, why would you trade that guy? He's your best hitter. But it kind of worked. And I think Duran, it would be similar. So, because I think Yoshida can give you what Jaron Duran is giving you right now. He may even be able to give you more because Duran's hitting like 250 right now. And again, is striking out. And the speed is there. But and I said this a couple of shows ago, he looks slower to me this year. Not a ton, but like just a little bit slower. And he got on base tonight and they showed his stolen base percentage. I mean, 15 stolen bases, but he's been caught 5 times. And I feel like last year he never got caught. Like he maybe got caught 2 or 3 times. I don't know what the final numbers were, but I feel like also just last year he, every base hit, you were like leaning forward in your seats, like, is he going to stretch this into a double? Like he hasn't been doing that this year. So I think the speed is starting to already go. And yeah, Yoshida can't run. That stinks. But he can hit. And I think he can give you more than what Jaron Duran is giving you. So if you can get, again, like a Mackenzie Gore type of guy from San Diego or anyone else who wants Jaron Duran, I think that's the prudent move.
There's log jams in the infield. There's log jams in the outfield. So at this point, you have to say, what pieces can we move to get the best return, right? And I mean, you're not going to move any of the kids, right? I mean, unless you're getting this preposterous haul, you're not doing any of that. But they're not doing that. We all know it. So you really have to. You got to try to talk to, all the front offices and see what fits for you. And, I would even take a solid number 3 starter for Jaron Duran at this particular point. It doesn't have to be freaking Paul Skeens, you know what I mean? Like, which would never happen anyway, but you guys get my point. I would take a solid number 3 for him because, we need that more than we need, 6 outfielders and, 6 infielders. I guess it's a good problem to have, but like something's got to give. And if we are going to be sellers, we need to get major league talent in return, because then we're buyers and sellers at the same time, but not just arbitrarily. We're actually getting needs to replace depth that we already have.
Yeah, for sure. I just pulled up Jaron Duran's steals, by the way. He had a 24-2 ratio back in 23, 34-7 ratio last year, and then 15-5 so far this year. So definitely not nearly as impressive as last year. The one thing I will say about Duran, and I completely agree with what Brad is saying in chat, which is the intangibles are there. It's different than the Devers trade because from what it seems like, Devers wasn't really that beloved in the clubhouse. I'm not saying he was toxic, but he was kind of like a wall fixture. It's like you walk in and the water fountain is gone and you're like, oh, that's weird. You know what I mean? But there are vibes guys. Brock Holt was a vibes guy. He wasn't just good because of his utility and the fact that he was able to slap base hits. He was good because the whole team loved him. Kike Hernandez had a similar role for many years. Right now, Duran is an electric spark plug type of player, and that's just what makes it so much harder. It sucks because the problem with Duran right now is the Sox have not been getting great production out of the leadoff spot. Duran was supposed to be that guy. His on base is drastically down this year. We've pretty much seemingly woken up to the fact that he's just not a good hitter versus lefties typically. Lefty, I believe it's breaking pitches, really get him mixed up. Masataka Yoshida does have a 351 on base versus righties over his career. So maybe you get a leadoff guy. I mean, listen, as much as I might like Nate Eaton in in comparison to David Hamilton, I'm not over here being like, oh yeah, that's our leadoff guy. He has speed, but this isn't 1970. You need to get on base for that. So it's just a mess. It's a messy situation, and I do agree that trading Duran, the one huge red flag is like, oh God, how are the guys going to take it? I mean, they're professionals at the end of the day. You keep your chin up. You say, all right, well, we
It's
got to say goodbye to
business.
our friend. Yeah,
It's business.
but it hurts. Um, that being said, if we can get a haul back, you sort of have to say yes. I think it's tough though. It's really tough. Um, it's just it's where the feelings start to get in the way of baseball for me, where you say, I want this guy on my team forever. And you just realize, oh God, I thought that way about Mookie. I thought that way about Devers. I thought that way about, I mean, for a little time, I thought that way about, guys like Benintendi, and you just never really know what's going to happen with a guy's career.
Yeah, and part of me thinks that Duran might be headed down a Benintendi kind of path
Oh, I
because
hope not.
I mean, if you remember Benintendi, when we first came up, he was a really good hitter, like a really good outfielder, had all the tools, and then he had that off season where he's like, I want to hit more home runs, and he just bulked up, and it ruined his career. I mean,
Mhm.
it ruined his swing. He couldn't hit the same way. I feel like Duran is doing that. Duran looks like a monster right now, and that's why I think because he hit what 20 home runs, 21 home runs last year, so he probably talked to his agent and his agent said, hey, if you can hit 30, that's more money in the bag for you. So he started flipping more giant tires around and, doing his insane workouts and he bulked up and now his numbers are kind of going down. I do wonder if in a couple of years, Duran's just going to be a part-time player or, struggling to get at bats because, if he keeps going down this path and, the numbers keep going down, then it's not going to look good. So that's why I think you've got to trade him now because if at the end of the year he's hitting 230, his value is going to plummet.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a no-win scenario in a lot of ways. I think it's one of those things where the only salve for it would be getting a good return. If you can wrap it up, and I will say this right now, absolutely no prospects. If you do get him as a toss-in, I want the centerpiece. If we do trade a guy like Duran, I want a Chris Bubich type of player that we could potentially lock up. I want at least 2 years of control, ideally, for a number two starter. I mean, that would be very, very nice. If we could sell high on him, that would be nice. But at the end of the day, we don't necessarily need to trade him. It's just that it might be the smartest baseball decision at the end of the day. And not even just him. I mean, that applies to Abreu too. It could just as easily be Abreu's name that's getting tossed around in a lot of ways. Really, the only reason I prefer Abreu is just, you prefer the defense, you prefer the youth, I guess, and I like his toolkit a little bit more than Duran, just because, like we said, speed doesn't age well typically, and it is true that his sprint speed has dropped by like half a mile per hour, which isn't huge, but you never know what's going to happen with a guy like that.
Well, yeah, and the other thing too is, and I've been reading this in the comment section for the past couple of weeks or whatever. I don't think anyone wants rentals either. Like no prospects, no rentals, because you're going to rent a guy at a team that's essentially 500, and I mean, unless it's a slam dunk player, then what's the point? So you trade for him. We missed the playoffs by 2 games, and now he's going into free agency. We don't have, oh yeah, we're gonna have talks and conversations. You're not. You're going to because the Red Sox aren't going to pay you. Someone else is going to pay you higher. So I agree with that. To your point, Nick, there's going to be someone with at least, this year and next year's worth of control, especially if it's a starting pitcher, I think.
Yeah, and and yeah, in the whole like Eugenio Suarez idea, I would like him to move over to first base. But even he's a rental, and I imagine he's going to be pretty coveted too. A lot of teams, you can imagine the Yankees. even the Dodgers. I mean, they seem to find a place for everyone over there. You never know. He's going to be coveted for sure. It really does raise the question for me because Eugenio Suarez, he's about to turn 34, I'm pretty sure, in about 10 days. It makes you wonder where the organization is on Casas as a whole. Do they expect him to be the opening day first baseman next year, as well as the first baseman of the future? If so, then getting a guy like Eugenio just to finish out the season and you lose some, double A player that you don't really care about that much, that makes a lot more sense. Whereas if you're looking for a more permanent first base solution, let's say you say, Toro's not going to keep this up. Romy's not going to be able to platoon forever. We prefer him as a general, a general infield utility guy. It really does make you wonder where the organization's head is at, because I think that's going to influence whether we target a permanent first base solution or simply a little patch, a little Band-Aid on the roster, pretty much.
Yeah, and in terms of how the organization feels towards Casas, I mean, he's not going to be back to start the year next season. Like, this injury was a really bad one, so the rehab is going to be a long time. You might be looking at All-Star break next year. So, if you trade for a guy like Suarez, then okay, you have him for this year. He is a pure rental. Do you really want to give him like a 3-year deal after that when he's going to be in his late 30s? Probably not. Now, another guy you could look at on Arizona, who's more of a permanent first base solution, would be Josh Naylor, who's 27. He's going to be a free agent as well. So he might be the guy that if they don't have confidence that Casas can come back and be, the guy they thought he was going to be, Josh Naylor would be a good long-term solution. He's a left-hander, but he's a much better hitter than Casas, probably about the same defensively. And he's a guy that you could give a long-term deal to. So it'll be interesting to see who they target and, sort of what their feeling is, regarding first base, because I think they look at Casas now as kind of a distressed asset and a guy who they'll be lucky if they get any sort of production out of him next year.
And he was already in trade rumors in the offseason. And, they offered him a contract extension and he declined. And he bet on himself and he lost. And, that's it. And it was a terrible injury. I don't want anyone to get hurt. I wish Tristan Casas was playing first base and right now he's sitting at 25 bombs, and hitting 285, of course, but he's only had a little bit of success in the big leagues. Like, maybe like 3/4 of all this combined of all the seasons he played. And I know people get butthurt about that, but that's just how it is. He struggled at times and, I don't care about his idiosyncrasies and his quirks. Like that doesn't bother me. You can be super quirky if you're hitting, again, you're hitting 285 with, 25 dongs at, the midway point in the season. I got no problem with whatever you want to do. That doesn't bother me, and it shouldn't bother any of his teammates either. It's just the fact that he's not on the field. He's not going to be on the field for most of next year. So then he has to come back, Jason, to your point, midway or whatever through the season. Now he's going to go do a rehab stint in Portland or Worcester or whatever. Then he's going to find his groove. And it's like, you can't rely on that. You can't.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Jason, because you just reminded me. I did want to talk a little bit about why I'm choosing Suarez to move from third to first instead of a guy like O'Hearn or a guy like Naylor. I was talking with Terry a little bit after the last show. We were talking, sort of bouncing off a couple of trade candidates, and I brought up both O'Hearn and Naylor, who I've been a big proponent for. And then I looked at their splits, and I went into like an episode. I was like, oh no, not again. Not another guy who can hit righties and can't hit lefties. O'Hearn, you look at his splits, it is night and day so far this year. I mean, and it looks like the Orioles know it because he only has 54 plate appearances versus lefties. It's an 892 OPS versus righties to a 606 versus lefties. It's a massive drop-off. With a guy like Naylor, you have a 903 OPS versus righties down to a 656. You look at his career numbers, he has a 670 versus lefties. it's just like more of the same for me where I'm like, God, if we're just getting a guy to split time with Romy at first base, just keep Toro because at least Toro doesn't really strike out all that much. I love a good platoon, but there's no reason to substitute a platoon player with a platoon player, if you get relatively similar outcomes from it. And at least Toro, much like Yoshida, they don't strike out, they slap base hits. And, Toro, his chase rate is still abysmal, but someone pointed it out earlier that they thought that, earlier in the season that they thought, well, it's not going to stay 40% forever. It is not 40%. It's down to 34. That's it's still awful, but it's still in line with his, career numbers. And it is getting a little bit better. And he's doing okay over there. I don't really mind his defense at first. So, yeah, right now I'm like, either get yourself a first baseman who can play every day, get yourself another frontline starter, please. And honestly, I can't even believe that this would be close to the top of my wish list, especially after the whole Danny Jansen debacle last year. We really need a backup catcher because Connor Wong is looking just about as close to an automatic out right now as you can possibly get in the major leagues. It's really, really bad.
No, 100% they need a backup catcher. Yeah, the Connor Wong thing is a joke at this point. I mean, I was actually hoping Yasmani Grandal would stick around and, they could eventually call him up, but he decided to retire. So, whoops, that didn't work. Yeah, it's a backup catcher. Like, you don't have to overextend for that. Like, call up the White Sox. Be like, hey, who's your backup catcher? Yeah, we'll take him. We'll give you a bag of baseballs. Like, just go reach out to one of these crappy teams that happens to have a good, I'd like a good defensive backup catcher, but at least someone who, can put the ball in play a little bit and, get a hit with runners in scoring position. Like, maybe just one. Like, get someone like that. It's not hard. There's plenty of them around. That should be an easy, top of the list kind of thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, Wong is abysmal, as you can see by my hashtag. I don't know. It felt like he struck out 8 times tonight. I just, you know what I mean? It was just brutal at bats, not even competitive. I mean, I never thought he was that great. He's had his moments where he's had a little bit of power here and there. He's had some clutch hits, but I mean, he's not the guy. He's not your starter, and now he's not your backup, really. I mean, you gotta look at that, but that's not something where, you have to put a package together. And I mean, you could pick up guys off the waiver wire if they have DFA'd, and again, you don't want the Jansens of the world, but anyone but him right now, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. Also, a few seconds ago, looks like Nate Eaton has been sent back down to AAA for Masataka Yoshida. Very interesting. One last thing I'd like to say just before we wrap up the show is, what do you guys think about Richard Fitz being sent down to AAA? I thought that was a very strange move because in theory he should, or that spot in the rotation at least, should have one more start coming up before the All-Star break.
Yeah, I didn't get that part. And then you sent him down, you brought back Isaiah Campbell, who has blown ever since he's gotten here. Like, that was a strange move. I don't know if there's got to be some other moving parts. Like, there's got to be a reason why they sent him down. I did find that very strange, especially since, like, that was his best start of the year. And then they optioned him. Like, I don't know. There's got to be some other moving parts involved that we don't know about yet.
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of plan, because I read that today and I was like, I think I sent it to you guys and I'm like, what? Because again, I mean, he pitched again, I know it's the Rockies, but he pitched well, and he really has pitched pretty well. I mean, I know that was his first major league win, but all things considered with this team, which, the pitching's starting to come around now. But I thought it was very strange, unless, I mean, what do they want to give him even more time off at I don't get it.
Yeah, it is possible that Dobbins comes back for his final start. I suppose. I guess the only other solution I would think is Chris Murphy pitched following Richard Fitz, and he has started a lot of his games in college. I think he was a starter, of course. He pitched as a starter all the way through Double and Triple A several years ago. He only sort of got moved into this more relief role over the past few years. So I guess if Dobbins doesn't come up, you could say, well, Chris Murphy in a bullpen game just before the break. If Dobbins does come up, that makes a ton of sense. And then you have a guy like Isaiah Campbell coming in just to, be an extra arm in the pen, since why keep a guy who's not going to pitch, So that would make sense, I suppose. Do you guys have any final comments, or should we look at the matchup for tomorrow?
Let's do it.
Alrighty. So we have one more game against the Rockies. We got to make it count with another 7:10 p.m. Eastern start. It's going to be Antonio Senzatella versus Lucas Giolito. I am feeling very, very good. Oh, and thank you, Brad, for correcting me in the comments. They did say Dobbins would start versus the Rays. That's awesome. So Antonio Senzatella versus Lucas Giolito. I mean, like I said a few days ago, any major league team can beat you. The Rockies have somehow gotten 21 wins. 21 runs probably is accurate too, but 21 wins so far this season. Antonio Senzatella, for those of you who are into Baseball Savant, I encourage you, go to his page, look at his numbers. It is ungodly bad. He is in the first percentile of many stats, which means he is technically the worst pitcher in the league. He has a 6.57 ERA, a 1.9 whip, 46 strikeouts and 86.1 innings. This guy, I mean, if you don't shell this guy, what are you doing? It's got to be a sweep as far as I'm concerned.
It absolutely has to be a sweep. You should put up another 10 spot on this guy. I mean, I don't watch really any Rockies baseball except for when they come to Fenway. The only thing I know how bad Antonio Senzatella is because of what the guys at MLB The Show just did to him with the roster update. They put him at like a 52 overall with like D for potential. So I saw that one. Okay, he must be having a bad year. And then I look at the numbers. Yeah. I mean, ERA in the 6s, the 1.9 whip. That's abysmal. That's not even AAA level. That's you should be in single A, if anything. So, yeah, this guy is legitimately the worst pitcher in baseball. This Red Sox lineup, the way they've been going, they should absolutely crush this guy. So, I think they will. The only question is, can Lucas Giolito keep doing what he's been doing and not get shelled himself? I think he'll be fine. This Rockies lineup is a strikeout machine. They got a couple of nice players. Doyle's good. That Tyler Freeman is a former first-round pick. He's pretty good. Apart from that, no one's really going to burn you in this lineup. So I think Giolito should be fine, and I think they should beat the crap out of Senzatella. So, yeah, I agree. It should be a sweep.
Senzatella is just what the doctor ordered before the Rays series and the All-Star break.
And, I mean, what a soft landing for Yoshida to come back against, hopefully. We could see – I mean, he was just playing in Double-A, so that's probably – pretty comparable to where Senzatella's pitching right now. I don't want to be too mean to the guy, but honestly, it's rough right now. It's been a very fun show tonight. Very fun game to watch. Thank you everyone for joining us. Great conversations in the chat. Very active chat tonight, especially. And it's been a blast. So hopefully we go out there. We see what Lucas Giolito can do. Maybe he can get a complete game. You never know. Just focus on playing good baseball. The opportunities will present themselves just like today. It took a little while for the Red Sox to find their footing, and once they did, they didn't let off the gas. So fingers crossed, 4 games above 500 tomorrow. We will hopefully have another very happy show for the lot of you. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. I do appreciate it. Once more, I've been Nick, joined by my wonderful co-hosts here, Mark and Jason, and we have been the Bastards of